Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keena's going again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at Warp Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including our iHeartRadio app. And make sure you give Warp Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at Warp Media, WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite sports opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago live in living color on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku TV, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, Blackberries if they still exist, or your personal PC or your Chromebook like I'm using right now, just hit up the Google Play Store, download that Roku TV app, and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And yes, we will provide whatever we can do here on Second City Sports. Got a little show for you today, Sid, as we'll talk, of course, we'll talk some NBA as the Bulls get a big win over the weekend. Yesterday over the Pistons and the rest of the the NBA weekend. Also, too, some interesting results in college football, week 11. And we also got, old school TV Monday, time permitting, and a whole lot more. But first, we're going to talk some NFL week 10 as no Bears game, obviously, but we'll always, But then again,
strange.
I know. I felt better about that. So, we're gonna get right. Look, I didn't mind not being able to have to deal with a Bears game this week. So let's start off in Germany as the Colts beat the Patriots 10-6. No, that's not a typo, folks, but not a sort of a lineup there. You got Gardner Minshew had threw for 194 yards. An interception. Matt Jones really struggled. 170 yards in the interception. They brought Bailey Zappi in about 3/4 away through the third quarter, but he wasn't much better. He had an interception as well. To the Colts defense, they're correct. They sucked Matt Jones 5 times. So, Sid, what did you think?
I had this game on in the background as we were getting ready to watch the afternoon games, and it was kind of your liking, Lakina, pre-1970s, 80s football, 10-6. Whole lot of defense, whole lot of bad quarterbacking, a whole lot of turnovers, and a whole lot of garbage. But with that being said, we told you this on Friday. We didn't think it was going to be this bad, but the Colts were the better team on paper. They could have put up a couple more touchdown drives together, but they held on for a 10-6 victory. As you mentioned, the Colts defense came out to play New England. They're 2-8 for a reason, and conventional wisdom would think that this is the beginning of the end of the Bill Belichick era in New England. Owner Robert Kraft and other front office people, they better be on high alert right now because I don't see this getting better anytime soon. I'm not saying fire Bill Belichick today, but you got to let the rest of this month and, of course, December to play out. But things are not looking good in New England country.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I guess this is easily probably one of the worst seasons in the Belichick era, even early on in the in his tenure with New England. So I'm wondering, wonder what's going to happen. Are they going is Kraft going to leave the decision up to him to decide whether or not he wants to leave, or a whole lot of questions to be answered. But yeah, I mean, it's not looking good down there in Foxborough right now. So definitely keep you guys updated on that front. But it is what it is, unfortunately, at this point. But let's go start with the noon games. They're probably one of the biggest thrillers of the noon games. Let's go to Cincy as Houston came back to upset Cincy 30-27. I actually had this game on the computer until we got the game here in Chicago after the Packers Steelers game. But CJ Stroud continues to impress. 356 yards, a touchdown. Did have an interception, but they were able to kind of bounce back from that. But Joe Burrow, on the other hand, he had 347 yards, 2 TDs, but also 2 interceptions. Devin Singletary had rushed for 150 yards and a TD. So still, they came back. It was a very, very contentious fourth quarter between them, and kind of a back and forth. And Houston was able to get that game-winning field goal to win the game.
Yeah, CJ Stroud, the rookie quarterback for the Texans, continues to improve every week. He continues to amaze us as fans, and I'm not going to say he doesn't have the heart of a champion. He does, but you can see the confidence growing with him every week. And we talked about it for the last 3 weeks. Devin Singletary, how can Buffalo not use him correctly last couple of years? I don't understand, but that's a whole nother issue. But he's been the savior for that Houston, Texas running game, especially with the injuries to Dameon Pierce. But their wide receivers, I'm talking about Houston, they've been phenomenal. Of course, Noah Brown yesterday, 7 catches for 172 yards. Tank Dell, he had a touchdown catch yesterday. The reason why I know this is because Tony Gill, shout out Tony Gill, he beat me in our fantasy matchup yesterday. He had Tank Dell, so he outdid what other my wide receivers did. But that's a whole other issue. But their young wide receivers, they're growing. I know Nico Collins has been up and down this year, but the Texans have a young wide receiver, but it was their defense that came through at the end, Lakina. As I said on Friday, for the Bengals to win this game, we did tell you that Houston would keep it closer. Well, they kept it close. They pulled off the upset, but they had to run the ball well with Joe Mixon. You didn't see a whole lot of that yesterday. I know he got a score, but outside of that, Joe Burrow, he had a couple of nice throws. Jamar Chase, we all thought that he wasn't going to play. He showed up early yesterday, scored that early touchdown, but it was Houston that did the little things down the stretch to pull off the upset.
4 sacks, they sacked Burrow, so that was a huge, huge name for them. Also, CJ Stroud, 2,626 passing yards this season, the third most through through 9 games their first 9 games by a rookie, who trails only Justin Herbert, who did in 2020, and Angelo, who did all the way back in 2012 as the most. So he's been so far. Well, we'll get to some of that later on in the hour, but there were some people who said that maybe he should be, in the consideration for MVP. I think people need to kind of slow down on that, but again, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now, say in the AFC North, let's go to Pittsburgh for a second. The Steelers held off the Packers 23-19. Again, not the flashiest. Kenny Pickett only threw for 126 yards. On the flip side, Jordan Love had 2 TDs, but also he had 2 interceptions, including one that ended the game for them. Jalen Warren had 101 rushing yards and a TD. Najee Harris had 82 and a TD. Now, this is interesting because the Steelers have come back. They are now 6-3, and for me, I'm wondering. Some people say they should be the favorite in the AFC North.
I'm not so sure about that. I know they're playing very well right now. I'm talking about Pittsburgh, but let's like you said, let's pump the brakes here a little bit, and we'll get to what happened with Baltimore coming up in a bit. But the Steelers, even though they're not playing the best on offense, they're doing what they need to do as far as running the ball well. Like you mentioned, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, and that's the way this offense goes right now until Pickett gets himself together. But George Pickens and Deontay Johnson still not a bad wide receiving core, but you would think for Pittsburgh to take the next step, Kenny Pickett has got to up his play. We saw that toward the end of last year. We haven't seen it on a consistent basis this year. So we'll see what happens with Pittsburgh going forward. But on the flip side for Green Bay, you can tell that Jordan Love, I'm not going to compare him to Aaron Rodgers of 2008, but you can see that he's starting to show some signs about the Packers just are not very good all around right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's it's just that something's just not clicking there. They're 3-6 for a reason. Will they make the playoffs this year? No. Will they perhaps finish strong? Maybe. But the Packers are not a playoff team right now. And I think the Packers front office still has they'll have a lot of soul searching to do this offseason. Christian Watson has been a disappearing act this year. I know part of it's due to injuries, but their defense is not as strong, which we thought was the strength of the team coming into this year. And it started off that way, but you see now they're starting to break down. So Green Bay has a lot of work to do between now and the end of the season and going into the next offseason as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot to do for them still. But Love is kind of going through some growing pains at the moment. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been like the spectacular. I think I don't know if the Packer fans were hoping that he would be kind of like up there with Aaron Rodgers when he first came on. So I'm gonna have to wait and see with that. Now going into Tampa. The Bucks no trouble with the Titans 20-6. I think a lot of people thought this game was going to be a little bit closer. Baker Mayfield threw for 278 yards and 2 TDs. And interception. Will Levis kind of got, Will Levis, I should say, he kind of got, kind of knocked back to earth a little bit. 199 yards and the interception, was sacked 4 times. Rashad White led the Bucks in rushing. So it was, Mike Evans, as they say, not the good times, Mike Evans, but this Mike Evans had 143 receiving yards and a TD. White also had the other TD catch from Mayfield. So again, Tampa still trying to stay right in the thick of it in the NFC South. I think this was truly the Tampa team that we saw a few weeks back, playing the Bears. So, they kind of fell in a little bit of a funk the last couple of weeks, but this is a nice win for them.
Yeah, with Rashad White, as you mentioned, he didn't have the rushing yards yesterday like he did last week at Houston in that loss. But as I said, Tampa Bay needed to pick up their running attack. They've been doing that over the last 2 or 3 weeks and improved right again yesterday. Like you said, Mike Evans had a big game with over 143 yards receiving in a touchdown. Baker Mayfield did turn the ball over once early in the game, but he got it back together in time for Tampa to close out that win. But it was all about that Tampa Bay defense shutting the Titans down to only 2 field goals and shutting them down to 3 points in total in that second half.
Yes, they did. So definitely a nice win for Tampa. I think we can do a couple. Maybe okay. We'll do one more real quick. We'll do this one since this was a blowout. San Francisco no trouble with Jacksonville, 34-3. I guess the bye week was really what the 49ers needed. Brock Purdy threw for 296 yards and 3 TDs. Christian McCaffrey had 96 rushing yards. Deebo Samuel got a rushing touchdown in his first game back. George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk each had a TD pass. Kyle Juszczyk got a TD pass. He got into the yak as well, and they sacked Trevor. The defense, I guess the defense needed a little bit of a jolt there because they sacked Trevor Lawrence 5 times. So I guess we shouldn't worry about San Francisco too much, I guess, right?
No, I know many national pundits earlier today watching a little bit of some of those television shows that have the 49ers back as the top team in the NFC. They played like it yesterday. I watched the majority of that game live via this computer screen. And the 49ers came out more aggressive yesterday, unlike Jacksonville. And the 49ers just imposed their will on the hometown Jaguars team. Brock Purdy, as you mentioned, played well yesterday. 3 touchdown passes with off of 296 yards. They should have had a fumble return for a touchdown. I'm talking about San Francisco in that third quarter, but you coaches and some of you players decided to step on the field. That's not smart, but that did not come back to bite them, so they won regardless of that. On the flip side for Jacksonville, very disappointing in Trevor Lawrence, very disappointing in Travis Etienne because that offense could not get it going, and a couple of times they got into the red zone. Unlike the Pittsburgh game, their mistake, they couldn't overcome their mistakes in the red zone. They turned it over a couple of times, and it was just terrible. So if you're Jacksonville, you got smacked in the mouth yesterday. How quickly, mentally, and emotionally can they turn this around? Because if they can't, it's going to be trouble for them, even though they're supposed to be the super class team in the AFC South. Because here comes Houston. They're right there, and you still have Tennessee hanging around despite what happened to them yesterday. So hopefully Jacksonville can use this as a wake-up call.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, I'll take a really quick break, of course. We're going to, talk some the rest of the NFL Week 10 slate. Of course, we got our Studs and Does coming up after that as well. An interesting game in Baltimore. Dallas makes a statement. And on Sunday Night Football, it looks like could the Raiders be making a run here? We'll see. And a big win helps the Bears in their draft positioning. So all that to do, a whole lot more, a whole lot to do still. Coming next in this first hour, second season sports on Sports Chicago with Keenan McGee, Sidney Brown. More NFL Week 10 talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
And welcome back to Second C Sports on Chicago. You can find Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X at Keenan's going to be in the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. We have less than 85 minutes left of this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, let's continue the NFL Week 10 breakdown as we go to Baltimore, just outside Baltimore, where in the AFC North, Cleveland came back from 14 down to win a thriller in Baltimore against the Ravens, 33-31. Deshaun Watson was a little bit banged up, but he did come back. Lamar Jackson, threw for 223 yards, a TD, but two big interceptions that did keep the Browns in it. Jerome Ford for the Browns had 107 rushing yards. Keaton Mitchell, the rookie, had a rushing touchdown. Gus Edwards also had a rushing touchdown as well. I mean, this game was kind of, you thought that Baltimore, got control, but then Cleveland came back. There was a couple of bad interceptions thrown by Lamar that kind of, kept them in it, and that's unfortunate. That's ended up happening. They end up, going down the field and end up winning the game. I'm talking about Cleveland, got a field goal.
Yeah, let's give the Browns defense credit as well. Of course, we all know about Myles Garrett's one of the best defensive pass rushes in the game, and that's what happened. They turned that game around in that second half, and which allowed the Browns to get more confidence on the offensive side. They started to execute down the stretch. Amari Cooper for the Browns had 6 catches for 98 yards. David Njoku, the tight end on my fantasy team, he also had a couple of key catches in that second half as well to move that Browns offense. But you mentioned it was Jerome Ford, over 107 yards rushing, and Kareem Hunt, who got nicked up a bit, he had close to 100 yards rushing as well. So it's all about running the ball and playing great defense for Cleveland and making the take advantage of making the big plays, and they did that in that second half yesterday.
I kind of felt like, Baltimore, played not to lose, and that was the problem once they got up. They should have ran the ball a little bit more. Only 107 rushing yards. I know that offense is not meant for like the running backs, but in this case, we are trying to milk the clock. You're trying to, kind of like, get these series going. Lamar forced a couple, and those 2 interceptions. I think that's what killed the Ravens in the end. So, yeah, you give the Browns all the credit in the world for staying in it, but Baltimore, that was a big hiccup by Baltimore. The Baltimore should not have lost that game, pure, plain and simple.
Yeah, when you play conservative, I don't care what sport you're talking about. If you play to lose if you play to win instead of not playing to lose, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt 9 times out of 10. As you mentioned, that's what happened to Baltimore yesterday.
Let's go to the Twin Cities in mini as the Vikings hold off the Saints 27-19. Josh Dobbs continues to impress, 260 yards, I should say, and a TD pass. Not too much on the rushing department, only a total of 125 rushing yards for the Vikings. But on the flip side, Derek Carr got banged up with a shoulder injury. Jameis Winston came on, threw 2 TDs, but 2 interceptions, including one that kind of was just whatever momentum that the Saints had, that killed them. And Chris Olave had 94 receiving yards and a TD in a losing effort there. But Minnesota, look, they're starting to kind of claw their way in. I know they've been banged up, but Dallas has been coming in. TJ Hawkins got his best performance this season so far, 134 receiving yards and a TD. Now Minnesota is right there in the thick of it at 6-4.
Yeah, that's 5 wins in a row for the Purple Gang. And you mentioned Josh Dobbs. I thought he was going to feel the pressure yesterday. No, he continues to prove the doubters wrong. As you mentioned, with the only touchdown pass that he had on the day, off of 268 passing yards. On the flip side, Derek Carr got beat up early. He had to exit the game. But did you check out the catch by Chris Olave, the first touchdown in the third quarter to get back in the game? That was great control of the feet, staying in bounds in that right corner of the end zone. I forgot who the other wide receiver for the Saints was. He had a tremendous catch to bring the Saints within 8. And Jameis Winston, give him credit. He came in and he did his job, but the Saints didn't have enough at the end. Minnesota, they're 6-4. As I mentioned, they won 5 in a row. They're definitely in the thick of it in that NFC wildcard race.
A.T. Perry, that's who you're talking about, who had the other touchdown catch for the Saints. So, yeah, that was a really that's a whole different conversation with the Saints. That kind of been a little bit more there. But the Vikings, look, they're kind of quietly, getting back into it. They're right there in the thick of the NFC wild card. So, something to look out for there now. As we go on to the first 3:00 game, shout out to our buddy Spiro Diaz, who actually ended up having a call of a thriller in Arizona. I don't think anybody saw that. Arizona beat Atlanta 25-23, I should say. We'll find another last-second field goal. Kyler Murray in his first game back after almost a year, due for 249 yards and an interception. James Conner, his first game back in the last few weeks, rushed for 73 yards. Taylor Heineke, threw for a TD. He was actually brought in, because Desmond Ridder didn't do too much after he got banged up, because he was sacked 3 times. I'm talking about Heineke, but Bijan Robinson, back home, he grew up not too far from where that stadium is in Glendale. He grew up in Phoenix. He had about a dozen family and friends there. Rushed for 95 yards and a TD. So a little bit of a show there, but this actually helps the Bears, this win by Arizona, because that gets them to 2-8. And then if the Panthers keep losing, they can be right there for the number 1 pick. But a nice win for Arizona.
Yeah, Kyler Murray returned with 249 yards passing and an interception. He's still going to take him a couple more weeks to get his timing back because you mentioned we mentioned before that he was out of for the entire year because of the torn ACL. You saw him look good in spots and other spots. He was still kind of rusty, but he's starting to get his timing back. It's going to take in a couple more weeks, in my opinion. But Trey McBride, I should say, he was the man of the hour for Arizona, their young stud tight end. Eight catches for 131 yards. As I mentioned, on the flip side for the Falcons, Coach Smith had a chance to get Bijan Robinson into the game. He did that yesterday with Robinson having 22 carries for 95 yards and an early touchdown. But it was ugly, entertaining, Lakina, to say the least, only because of Kyler Murray. The Falcons, they kept shooting themselves in the foot, especially in that second half, only coming away with 9 total points. But the Cardinals fought hard, as we said all year, Lakina. They don't have a whole lot of talent, but the players that are on their roster, they kept fighting. And the same thing happened yesterday. They were finally awarded with their second win of the year.
Yes, they did. Brandon, we talked about your Texans in the previous segment. You can go back and watch the replay. We probably will praise a little bit more in our Sutton does. But back to Arizona. I mean, look, Arizona, look, they're fighting hard. Jonathan Gannon's got his guys, playing hard. So I'm thinking, look, Arizona, it's not gonna be an easy win. And look, Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta was just brutal these last few weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they can kind of get it together. Now going a little further west in Los Angeles. Another thriller here. You got the Lions beating the Chargers 41-38. Jared Goff threw for 2 TDs, 333 yards. On the flip side, Justin Herbert had 4 TDs and an interception, threw for 323 yards. David Montgomery in his first game back had 116 yards and a TD. Jahmyr Gibbs, had 2 rushing TDs as well for them. I know that Keenan Allen got a little bit banged up, but he did, catch 175 receiving yards and 2 TDs. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 156 yards and a TD. I think we all thought this could be like a high scoring affair, kind of a back and forth, and that's kind of how it ended up happening. But the Lions were able to usually the Lions would lose these kind of games, but to their credit, they were able to able to win this one.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have a better team that's growing together and they're learning on the fly on how to win these certain types of games. Of course, at this time last year, they were losing these games like this, whether it's a mental breakdown or bad luck or some other type of situation. Remember that around this time during the second half of the year, they started to win those games and they learned their lesson. They started to win those games on a consistent basis. Now, on the flip side for the Chargers, Lakina, in my opinion, I did watch some of this game live via the NFL Red Zone in this computer. I didn't think the Chargers ran the ball consistently enough. Justin Herbert, he had a nice game, but, their running attack needed some more seasoning in that offense, in my opinion. I didn't think this game would be as high scoring, which turned out to be. But the Chargers had their chances, but their defense, after being a dominant last Monday night on the road, it was a shell of themselves yesterday.
And some people say should Brandon Staley be on the hot seat, so might be something to look out for there. Because very disappointing season for them so far, and just to kind of like a bad luck, on their part. So we'll see what happens with that. Now going to Dallas, the game of the week. I mean, this was a game for like maybe 10 seconds, maybe like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, because the Giants in the opening drive, the Giants did stop Dallas on the goal line, but that was kind of like it for that. 49-17. Dak threw for 404 yards and 4 TDs and an interception. Tommy DeVito had threw for 2 TDs, but I think those were like in garbage time, and because that game was already a laugher and an interception. He was sacked 5 times. Saquon Barkley only 66 rushing yards. Rico Dowdle had 79 rushing yards. Brandon Cooks, his best game this season so far, 173 receiving yards and a TD. CeeDee Lamb, 151 yards and a TD. Just not really much to say about the Giants. I mean, yeah, they had that nice, they were able to stop, Dallas early on that first drive, but after that, it was all Dallas.
Yeah, as we said on Friday, Lakina, after losing a close one and after giving that game away, to be honest with you, at Philadelphia last week, Dallas needed a big performance. They got one at home against an inferior opponent, putting up 49 points. Dak showed out. I know he had the early turnover, but he overcame that by throwing 5 total touchdown passes. But it was the Dallas Cowboys defense that made the statement yesterday. I had them on my fantasy team. They gave me 14 points. I know they sacked DeVito about 4 or 5 times, and they did come up with an interception. But this is the Cowboys. They're right there in 6-3. But we need them to perform like this against better opponents like Philadelphia coming up here shortly. And they got 2 tough road games in a couple of weeks to start off December at Buffalo and at Miami. So let's see if Dallas can do this against better teams.
That's going to be the thing. So we'll see. But yeah, I kind of feel like, the Giants, I think it's basically a lost season for them. So we'll see what happens with Dallas now. Going to the Pacific Northwest and Seattle, another thriller. You got 29-26, the Seahawks over the Commanders, another game-winning field goal there as well. Geno Smith threw for 316 yards and 2 TDs. Sam Howell on the other side had 312 yards and 3 TDs in a losing effort, but he was sacked 3 times. Kenny Walker the third had 63 rushing yards. On the receiving side, DK Metcalf had 98 yards. Tyler Lockett had a a touchdown catch, and and Walker had that the other touchdown catch from Geno. This is actually a pretty thrilling game. Oddly enough, I don't think people thought this was going to be a thriller, but it was. It also came down to a last-second field goal. This was a theme here, folks. Just saying. But a nice win for Seattle as they stay, hang on to first place in the NFC West.
I thought this would be kind of a mild blowout by the Seahawks, but the Commanders responded early with that Brian Robinson Jr. touchdown, and then Seattle responded there. But I thought they kind of took their foot off the gas for a while, and of course the Commanders came back by scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter, and Seattle had to fight back. But Geno Smith had been looking bad for the last few weeks. He really responded yesterday, as you mentioned, with 2 huge touchdown passes off of 369 yards passing.
Yeah, really nice showing for the Seahawks. Going to Sunday night football, you got 16-12, the Raiders over the Jets. I mean, they did the Heidi references. If you guys didn't see the video, I think that's the original actress who played Heidi, who presented that, how it happened. If you guys remember, this was like 55 years ago, 1968. This was the Jets and the then Oakland Raiders. As soon as 6 o'clock our time hit, the game cut off, Heidi came on, and the rest was history after that. Now, no such thing here, but this wasn't as exciting as the Heidi Bowl game. Aiden O'Connell, 153 yards, a TD and an interception. Zach Wilson, 263 yards and an interception. He also was the leading rusher. I know Sid doesn't like when the QB is the leading rusher, 54 yards. On the flip side, though, Josh Jacobs had 116 rushing yards on that, and Devontae Adams led the way in receiving for the Raiders, 86 rushing yards. Garrett Wilson for the Jets, and then losing effort, 93 rushing yards. So again, not the prettiest game, but the Raiders now go to 2-0 in the Antonio Pierce era, and you can see like the energy. We saw it yesterday. They were celebrating. Pierce was sticking his tongue out at the camera after after it went 0. So it was kind of nutty. But look, I mean, the Raiders are 5-5. I'm not gonna say they're gonna win division, but they could definitely challenge in the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, they're gonna present some problems to some teams coming up on the rest of their schedule, including Miami next Sunday. Even though that's gonna be a road game for Vegas, and then they play Kansas City. I believe. I think have they played them this year, Lakina?
I don't think they have. I'll double check, but I don't think they have. I'll double check.
Yeah, so they have Kansas City come on up twice between now and the end of the season. So they're going to cause problems for some people. The defense has stepped up. They kept this is 2 straight opponents that kept down the ends of both high or around both the New York area teams. But the Raiders have kept their opponents out of the end zone. On the flip side for the Jets, Zach Wilson did show some heart, but they couldn't really get it going. Their rushing attack was non-existent. So you mentioned, as we mentioned last week, Lakina Ken, these Raiders players keep up that energy of not having Josh McDaniels around. But so far they have 2-0. As I mentioned, they'll have a tough game coming up next week in Miami, as Miami's coming off their bye week.
Yeah, so the Raiders, so look now, the Raiders, like I said, back at 500. They're kind of right there in the thick of it in the AFC playoff picture. So we'll see what happens here. Can they continue the little roll? Now, there's Second City Sports. Sports Chicago, Lakina McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Let's talk our Week 10 studs and duds.
All right, my first stud will be C.J. Stroud, the rookie quarterback out of Houston, 356 yards, passing a touchdown in the 30-27 upset win over the Cincinnati Bengals. My second stud will be Jalen Warren, the running back out of Pittsburgh, 15 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown as the Steelers defeat the Packers 23-19. And my third stud will be George Kittle, 3 catches, 116 yards in that early third quarter touchdown. As I thought that that touchdown catch to start the second half for the 49ers was the backbreaker as the 49ers blow out the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-3 in the state of Florida.
Good choices. I'll start with Dak. Even though that early interception, he was able to bounce back through 404 yards. In that win, that's his 7th career game with at least 400 passing yards and 70% completion percentage, tied for the second most in such games in NFL history. T.J. Hawkinson from the Vikings starting to kind of get going there in that offense for them. He's the second tight end to have at least 10 receptions. He had 12 and 120 yards, as I mentioned earlier, receiving touchdown in a single. He did all that in one half. So, of course, the other guy that did that was Zach Ertz for the Eagles, back in 2018 against the Cowboys. I'll stick this to Mr. Hawkinson's former team, the Lions. In particular, I'm on Ray St. Brown, 144 receiving yards. In total 152 yards now, recorded at least 100 or more receiving yards in 4 straight games. He's the first Lions producer since Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson did it. He had a streak of 8 straight games, so we'll see in 2012. So we'll see if St. Brown can keep that up. And those are my studs.
All right, my duds are as follows. Number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, in particular Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. Mostly Trevor Lawrence. He played like crap yesterday. That's enough to be said. My second dud will be the New York Jets' lack of rushing attack and just being shut out of the end zone. And all their points came off of field goals. You cannot have at least one touchdown. That's embarrassing. And my third dud would be, I forgot who the player for the Green Bay Packers, what his name was at the end of that game. He shoved the Pittsburgh player who made the interception out of bounds. And one of the coaches of the Steelers took a bad fall as a result of it. That was very unnecessary. The game was already over. What was that about doing the show? What are you trying to prove? That was just dumb in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that after the game. I flipped it off after that happened. But yeah, I did see the replay of it. That was a pretty dumb, just a dumb move. I think if we had dummies, dumbest play of the week, that would definitely be the winner there. My 3 duds, Cincinnati. What happened? Like, you had your shot. You didn't do a lot of running with Joe Mixon as much as you should have. And to Houston's credit, they were able to kind of keep you guys tamed, and they didn't quit when they got that lead. So they were able to Houston came back and won the game. So I don't know what happened there, but and staying in AFC North, Baltimore, really, guys, what happened? Like to me, you let that was just as much Baltimore coughing that game up as much as Cleveland and winning it. So for me, I think that Baltimore, this is what happens when you let Lamar you want Lamar to do his thing, but at the same time that can come back to the kitchen. That those 2 interceptions in the second half, that definitely killed the momentum that the Ravens had. They should have ran the ball more in that sense. And I'm gonna say the Chargers. I mean, I don't know what else I can say about the Chargers at this point. This is their 13th loss by 3 or fewer points since the team drafted Justin Herbert back in 2020. That's the most such losses in the NFL over that span. I don't know what the hell is going on there. Like I said, I would be surprised if Brandon Staley, especially if they don't finish strong, could end up, getting his pink slip and late card, as our late friend Lamont Scott would say. Yeah, I mean, just terrible. Those are my 3 duds.
All right, and tonight's Monday Night Football contest will be taking place in Western New York, the state that is, as the Buffalo Bills checking in at 5-4, 4-1 at home. They'll host the 3-5 Denver Broncos. The Broncos are 1-2 away from Mile High, the new Mile High Stadium. Lakina, the Broncos, they looked good the last couple weeks. I know they're coming off a bye, but the Bills, they came up short last week at Cincinnati on Sunday Night Football. Do the Bills bounce back, or do the Broncos have an upset in them? Buffalo tonight, going into tonight's contest, they are favored by a full touchdown, 7 points.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit high, and I kind of feel like at this point, this is definitely I think this is a maker. I don't know. I don't want to say this is a make or break game for the Bills, but I kind of feel like that it is, because they're 5-4 right now, and I think they're trailing Miami in that division, the AFC East. So I'm wondering, like, could they perhaps this could be the thing that they really need. Denver's actually been playing better lately, so this could be one of those toss-up games. This could be a lot closer than people think. So for anybody that that's gonna pick Buffalo, don't be surprised if at least Denver covers. I don't know if they'll win it, but they will cover. But even still, I wouldn't be surprised if they win that game. We're talking about the Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos, you mentioned, have been playing very well the last couple of weeks. Russell Wilson, we all know that he doesn't have it anymore because of all those miles on those tires, and he's in his mid-30s right now, so he can't play like he used to during his early days with the Seattle Seahawks, but he's been playing complimentary football. Jamal Williams has been running the ball hard for the Broncos, and their defense has actually stepped up as well. Sean Payton, their new head coach, he has these guys rolling, and I think they'll come out strong tonight against Buffalo. As you mentioned, all the pressure is on Buffalo tonight. I kind of expected this a little bit, probably a little bit less, but Buffalo, it looks like their window's starting to close just a little bit more as they're now 5-4. But obviously this is a bigger game for Buffalo, as you mentioned tonight, and I think a strong performance will at least keep the doubters away for a week. But if they barely win a close one tonight, I think maybe a little bit more trouble is up on the horizon, but we shall see what happens tonight.
Yeah, they're 4-1 at home. Talking about Buffalo, so maybe being at home, this might be what's just what the doctor ordered for Buffalo. Maybe they'll play a little bit better. But I mean, Buffalo. I mean, they're are we going to have that starting to have that conversation about Buffalo, because they've got a tough schedule. They got the Jets on next Sunday. Then they got to go at the Eagles, at the Chiefs. They host the Cowboys and the Chargers and the Patriots. Well, that should be a win against the Patriots, and they finish up against the Dolphins. So they got a pretty tough schedule coming up. So they'll finish up the season. So I'm hoping that maybe they can kind of figure it out. Because if not, I know they've had a lot of injuries on defense, but you can't really use it as an excuse anymore, especially the way the team's been playing lately. If they were playing a little bit better, I can kind of see that. But now it's just so yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Denver pulls out tonight. I wouldn't.
Yeah, if Denver wins tonight, Buffalo is really in trouble. I know they got a game up on Miami, but like you said, Miami has the lead in the AFC East, and I know the Jets, they lost in ugly fashion last night, but they're 4-5, and should Buffalo lose tonight, there is certainly barely a game up on the Jets, and I think there'll be a game and a half or 2 games behind Miami. Of course, Miami had this past week off, so things could, like I said, get a little bit ugly should they lose tonight. But I expect them to win tonight. But I think it's going to be another close one.
It'll be very close. It'll be, and of course, you can watch the game on ABC, simulcast on ESPN. Of course, there's a Manningcast today, so all you Manningcast fans can get to catch, Peyton Manning doing, I guess, some weird dance moves. I don't know what he was doing last week, but whatever. I'm sure you'll be seeing more of that with him and Eli tonight. Real quick before we go to break, I know we're up against it, but do you think C.J. Stroud should be in the running for NFL MVP? Brandon, I hope you're listening or watching.
I think he could be in the conversation for that second tier, but I think your clear-cut favorite is Lamar Jackson. I know what happened yesterday against the Browns, and I know he didn't play well down the stretch, but he's been playing – I'm talking about Lamar Jackson. He's been playing very well all year. And as we said, going into the season, Lakina, if Lamar Jackson stays healthy, unlike the last 2-3 years, Baltimore will be there. And so far, outside of yesterday, Lamar Jackson has been playing probably his best football since his first 2 years in the league. So Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, is your leader in the clubhouse for MVP.
Yeah, I think so too. And I know that you probably put Dak up there as well. I think you could probably put him, put Dak in that category, sort of in that right there at the top of that. I think I guess you could probably say, I'm trying to think who else you could probably put up there. I guess I really can't think of anybody at the top of my head like right now, but yeah, I think CJ Stroud. I don't think they're gonna give it to a rookie. I just don't think that's gonna happen. That's not customary for the NFL to do that. So they may, he might be in that second or third tier group of guys, but right now I know TJ Watt, he had a big night yesterday. He had a sack yesterday. So some people say maybe he should be in the running for MVP. They rarely give it to defensive guys. So I don't know. I mean, those are probably the 3 names, Lamar Jackson, Dak, and TJ Watt.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And like you said, it's a I'm not gonna say a barn burner, but I think it's easy to say that CJ Stroud will win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah, he'll easily win that.
That'll be his MVP.
Yeah, that could be his MVP award as well. Maybe we have to wait a couple years for the actual NFL MVP. But yeah, so and that's your schedule for this. That was your schedule and your slate in NFL Week 10. It felt great not having to recap a Bears game. Yay! And I know you folks agree, so admit it. But hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports for Chicago. We're going to talk some Bulls, NBA. The Bulls got a nice win yesterday.
Yay!
Yay! I know. Then we'll talk. And but unfortunately, the Clippers, they're now over since the Harden trade. We'll talk about that. Also, too, Connor Bedard still breaking records. Some more college football as they're in week 11. Just a couple more weeks left in their season. Time permitting, we'll probably talk some college who's time permitting, as well. Caleb Love in a new uniform, but also gave Duke Fitz. We'll get to that in a second. Later in the second hour, and also too, Old School TV Monday, time permitting, and a whole lot more. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. ABA talk coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean,
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, hour number 2. You find my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X at Keenan Scorn, again, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. We have less than an hour, 55 minutes to be exact, left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live and in living color 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. live and on demand. You can catch us right now on Roku TV.
All right, so let's switch over to the hardwood and talk some Bulls and NBA. Now the Bulls got a nice win over the Pistons to get their revenge on them for an early loss a couple of weeks ago. 119-108. DeMar DeRozan led the way with 29. Nikola Vucevic had 21 points and 12 rebounds, a double-double. Zach kicked in with 19. Kobe White had 16. He was 3 for 6 from the 3-point line. Andre Drummond had 11 off the bench. Ayo also had 13 off the bench. So a nice, solid win. Like I said, they avenged a loss from a couple of weeks back against Detroit. So, look, I mean, I know some people will make fun of the Bulls. I'm talking to some of y'all over at ESPN 1000. I'm calling y'all out. But look, this is a nice win by them. They go to 4-6. You did what you're supposed to do against a team that they are better than, and they actually looked good. They actually looked good yesterday. I saw a little bit of this game, kind of turning back and forth before seeing their football game. I kind of went away from it once it started. What they had the game in hand. So, but it was actually a good performance by them.
As we said on Friday's show, Lakina, let's see if the Bulls can pick up the momentum some of the good habits that they did. Outside of losing the last few minutes of that Phoenix game, it was important for them to continue to play well. Because remember, they've been playing well even through that Phoenix game, which they lost the other night. They had a few days to sit on and think about it. And they picked up where they left off. They executed down the stretch. And unlike the loss in Detroit a couple of weeks ago where Zach LaVine had 51 points and DeMar DeRozan barely had 20, there was a lack of scoring. Remember P. Will? He had 0 points. Kobe White had 0 points. It was totally different this time, as you mentioned. There was balanced scoring in the lineup. I know Alex Caruso didn't play last night, but as you mentioned, Ayo Dosunmu brought in the energy, picking it up with 13 points in a sweet lob pass from him to Zach LaVine for the alley-oop early in that game. So that was very nice to see. Like I said, Vucevic started to get it going. Torrey Craig, I know that he didn't bring in that energy offensively, but he still ended up with 10 points to go along with his 3 points. And you can tell he's been more active the more playing time he's been receiving. He's been doing the job ever since he's been inserted into his starting lineup over Patrick Williams. But the Bulls bench, as you mentioned, they continue to play well. They had 22 assists as a team last night. They shared the ball well. They started to move the ball all around. As I told you, in the first couple of games of the season, I said I was trying to attempt more three-point shots, just pump, fake, and pass, and pump, fake, and pass. And that's not the flow of the offense. The Bulls, they want to get to where they need to go. One, they have to play better offensively, which they've been doing these last 3-4 games. And number two, execute down the stretch. Now, last night, it kind of sort of got close at the end, but they had a big enough lead to hold off the Pistons. And number three, they did shoot the ball decently from three-point range. I know they were 11 of 30, but they shot it at a 36% clip. I know 40% or above is the a good average from shooting from three-point land in today's game. But the Bulls got close to that mark last night, and they deserved the win.
Yeah, they did, and they play Milwaukee tonight. So Milwaukee's kind of up and down late. I know we know that Giannis hasn't scoring very well, but unfortunately those have been all losses. So for me, I think coming off that game that you're feeling pretty good. Milwaukee, they've like I said, they kind of had an up and down last few games. So they had a bad loss against Orlando on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think the Bulls. We see the Bulls can kind of if they show a little bit of this momentum, they can kind of be consistent on this. It could definitely be right back at 500. So I think for me, this is what I need to see on a consistent basis. So they've got a good weekend games coming up. They got Milwaukee, they got Orlando on Wednesday. So I'm thinking that maybe if you can win one of these games, you can kind of get back into it. And have people not make fun of you, unlike some people on certain sports radio stations. But I'm not going to go there right now. But But look, let's talk about the rest of the weekend in the NBA. Some pretty interesting scores last night. In addition to that,
Are we going backwards?
Well, yeah, I guess if you want to, go ahead. You start.
Okay, all right, that's fine. As we usually do, we go backwards.
We usually are backwards at times, but
that's true.
But yeah, well, we were human. But yeah, I mean, the Lakers got a nice win against Portland, 116-110. AD had 30 points, and I think the Lakers are starting to kind of, figure it out a little bit. I mean, they had a nice win against Phoenix. We'll talk about that game in a second. But yeah, I mean, the balance scoring. I know, LeBron had a really nice, really nice showing on Friday against that Phoenix game. AD kind of like led the charge in that game last night against Portland. But yeah, the Lakers are starting to figure it out a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I watched the majority of that game last night. I'm talking about the one against Portland, and I know LeBron James didn't play because of that left calf injury. But other guys stepped up, as you mentioned about Anthony Davis. He led the charge with 30 points, 13 rebounds, spills. Rui Hachimura, he came, he was a pickup last year. He stepped up last night. Cam Reddish, who they picked up for the New York Knicks, he really stepped in last night. He's been doing it the last 2-3 games, and he continued his hot play last night. So, and D'Angelo Russell showed up big down the stretch as well. So, it's the supporting castmates has been getting it done for the Los Angeles Lakers. But none of this will happen if LeBron James and Anthony Davis are out for any extended period of time. You would think that if Anthony Davis is out for any extended period of time and LeBron James is healthy, yeah, we saw that last year. The Lakers can barely survive and win some games. But if LeBron James is out and Anthony Davis is there, Anthony Davis, this is your team. You need to step up consistently. First of all, stay healthy to play the majority of games in a regular season. Number two, you got to be that dog. You got to be that alpha male and say, hey, this is my team. I'm the best player on the court. Give me the ball. Let me go to work. He did do that last night, but the supporting cast of the Lakers helped him out as well.
Yeah, I think that they need that too. And I know, LeBron had got banged up with that calf against Phoenix, was able to finish the game, but you can kind of tell it was starting to bother him a little bit. So, if he has to take a couple of games off, I mean, that's fine. I mean, at least this is what the Lakers been missing. So hopefully they're starting to figure it out now. Going to the Bay Area, Golden State loses to the T-Wolves 116-110. Anthony Edwards is still, like I said, like we've been saying, he might be one of the few guys, outside of like the main guys that'll probably end up on the Olympic team next year. He led the way with 33 points for the T-Wolves. Now on the flip side for Golden State, Steph Curry, had 38 points. I think he's the oldest player to average 30 points a game. So he's still shooting the ball very well. Did not too much out from his guys. I mean, Klay Thompson had 16, but struggled from the field, especially from 3-point range. Wiggins, only had 6 points. Green and his weirdness, Draymond only had 9 points. So
we need to talk about that in a second. Because I saw something that dust up against Cleveland the night before last Saturday. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, they're now 6-5. Talking about Golden State, so they're struggling a little bit there too in the very jam-packed Western Conference. So I mean, I'm kind of like I'm not worried about the Warriors right now, especially this early in the season. But they've had some losses that you're kind of thinking, scratching your head, like okay, they probably should have won that game, but.
Yeah, but like you said, they have a bunch of veterans on that team. I know they have some young guys that are expected to fill in and step up. But like you said, Lakina, it's early on in the season. Hopefully soon they can start to turn it around.
Absolutely. So continue with the games. Phoenix loses to OKC 111-99. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 35 points. KD had 28, and Phoenix after that win against the Bulls where they just barely squeaked by. They probably should have lost that game if you ask me, but excuse me, they're 4-6. They're struggling, and I know that a lot of their three guys have not been in and out of the lineup. I know that Book's not playing right now due to an ankle injury. I know that KD's been doing okay, by himself, but Jerkic only had 3 points. That's not going to do it. Grayson Allen only had 7, so that's not like they need. Both KD and Beal need help from some of the guys, especially if Book's going to be out for a little bit.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. And as I said before the season started, I like the Jurkic addition. He only brings additional scoring, but most importantly, he brings that intensity defensively, especially in the rebounding department. And Grayson Allen, he's going to, we know what a pain in the butt he was here against the Bulls when he was playing with the Milwaukee Bucks. So he's bringing that same energy to the Phoenix Suns. And also, the other guys on the bench are going to have to step up too. Don't forget about Eric Gordon right now. I know there was another veteran that they picked up. He's been in the league a long time from the Rockets and his days with the Clippers and the Nuggets and some of the other teams. But be aware of his presence as well as Phoenix trying to navigate through this early part of the season.
Yeah, they got a very tough schedule coming up this week. The Heat got a nice win against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs 118-113. Dallas beat the Pelicans 136-124. We talked about the Bulls game. Houston beat the defending champion Denver 107-104. Fred VanVleet led the way there with 26 points for the Rockets in this upset win.
Yeah, the Houston Rockets trying to establish themselves. I know they're still going through a rebuild right now, and I know they're trying to turn their corner to become a competitive team. I still don't see them there yet, but they're starting to form an identity. For Denver, I know they're without Jamal Murray for the rest of this month, but if you're a Nuggets fan, obviously you're not happy, but I'm not going to go overboard with this.
Nah, absolutely. I think look, he's a little bit banged up, so yeah, you don't want to overdo it right now, especially this early on. Now going to this Philadelphia Pacers game, if you took the over, I mean, I'm sure you had a nice end to your weekend. Tyrese Maxey had a career high 50 points. He's only 23. He's the second youngest player with a 50-point game in the Sixers history. Only AI is the closest guy who was even younger, who did it when he was only 20, just under 22 years old. But the Sixers, I think this is their like 7th win in a row since that opener. Well, they lost that opener. Well, I think it's the 8th one since they lost their opener now. So I think they're starting to kind of get it going. Look, I'm not gonna say they're not Boston and Milwaukee, they're chopped liver, but at least right now you're getting some balanced score from Embiid. I know, but yeah, Embiid okay with 37, but that's kind of minuscule. But this is what you need if they want to establish themselves. Get this is from guys like Maxey and Nicholas Batum and some of those guys.
And also, too, let's not forget about Tobias Harris. He's been a borderline all-star the last few years of his career, but the last couple years, he's been taking a nosedive. You want to see him step up as well. You know what you're going to get in Joel Embiid, but as you mentioned, some of the other role players that just step in and step up as well. Tyrese Maxey is clearly your number 2 guy next to Embiid. Who's going to be the number 3? Tobias Harris? It's time for him to step up.
Let's see if Philadelphia can keep up this momentum that they got, winning 8 in a row since losing that opener. So we'll see what happens there. Now, let's go to the Clippers and the Grizzlies. Grizzlies beat the Clippers 105-101. Desmond Bane had 27 points leading the way there. PG had 26 on the other side for the Clippers. They're now 0-3 since trading for Harden. So I know some people are already making fun of this trade already, but I think people need to realize that it's going to take Harden a week or two to kind of get into basketball shape. And once he does, he can get that going. But I know Clippers fans don't want to hear that, but this is kind of how he's been operating the list for the last few years. I know Clippers are, they're only 3-6, but I think people need to kind of just give a little bit of time. And look, if by the end of this month they're still, not very good, then you can worry. But I think right now people need to kind of be a little bit patient.
Yeah, we said that on Friday, and I'm not going to repeat that here. I did catch the end of that game yesterday live, and I know Harden threw up an air ball from the right corner. The game would have been tight if he would have made that shot, but they still have to figure some things out after he gets in shape, and we'll see where the Clippers are. Give it another couple of weeks, like you said, still playing like this, lackluster, then you can start to worry. But on the flip side for Memphis, I know they started out bad to the beginning of the season. You knew that John Morant is going to be out. I know it's going to be another 2 or 3 weeks before he returns, but Marcus Smart's been leading that charge. Of course, we have Chicago guy Derrick Rose there, but of course they're going to miss Steven Adams, that big guy who did not play in that playoff series last year against the Lakers. So Memphis is they still have some work to do, but it looks like he's starting to turn things around a little bit.
I know you want to talk about this Cleveland Golden State game. Things got a little bit testy there. Draymond got ejected. I stopped counting how many times Draymond's been ejected from games in his career. But, that was just not. Yeah, that just wasn't very smart. And the nice win for Cleveland. Though I know they've been struggling. They've been kind of getting together the last couple of weeks, but yeah, they've been struggling too early on in the season. So, but yeah, this was really kind of like the strangeness of this whole game. He got into it with Donovan Mitchell, and they just kind of spiraled out of control from there.
Yeah, I think Draymond Green ran over Donovan Mitchell. I think it was for an one, if I'm not mistaken. My memory serves on the first part, but on the next possession, of course, Draymond Green brought the ball up, and Donovan Mitchell shoved it. Everybody in the building knew that what Donovan Mitchell was trying to do, trying to get Draymond off his game. And of course, Draymond got into a verbal shouting match with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell pointed at him, say, "Go to the locker room." And then after the referees reviewed the play, Draymond Green started to rile up the crowd. And I was like, you know better than that. That's not smart. And if you're head coach Steve Kerr, is like, really, dude, you're better than that. Stop acting like a 5-year-old child. And of course, and Draymond deserved to get kicked out of the game. Like, really, dude, really. We all know that you're a pest out there. You're a very good defensive player without all the shenanigans. But when is enough enough? I know Steve Kerr has to be pulling his hair out at this point.
Yeah. I think I'm sure he just like, he kind of, if you saw the way he just looked at him, he's like, really, dude, really?
Yeah.
Really, just not very smart. And yeah, that was that ended up costing them as the Cavs beat the Warriors there. Now Miami, like I said, they're starting to kind of get together a little bit. 117-109 over Atlanta. Boston beat Toronto, and Milwaukee, with their, like I said, they're struggling. They've been struggling lately too. They lose to Orlando. Paulo Banchero had 26 points in the way for the Magic. Giannis had 35, but again, this is a losing effort. But we'll see.
Yeah, no Damian Lillard for that contest.
Yeah, I'll say no Damian for that contest for that game. But remember before that though, they had Dame and they lost, so could be something there. We'll see if he plays tonight against the Bulls. That's going to be interesting if he does.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Going into Friday's matchups again, we'll talk about the Phoenix Lakers matchup. Like I said, LeBron got a little bit banged up with that calf injury. That's why he didn't play yesterday. But he was able to finish the game, with 32. KD had 38, and I think this is like the 5th time in history that two guys over 35 had scored over 30 points in the game. That's actually pretty cool. It was actually not being a really good game, but it was the Lakers that kind of pulled it out 122-119.
Yeah, the Phoenix Suns were led by double digits, I believe, twice in that game. Had a chance to watch the majority of that second half live. Of course, this was day 2, I believe, of the play-in tournament from this is from last Friday. So the Lakers got it together. You mentioned Anthony Davis came a bit. As I also mentioned earlier in the segment, Cam Reddish had a huge 3-point shot from the left corner to pull for the Lakers to pull away from the Phoenix Suns. And LeBron James, he's still a very good player, but you don't want him playing a whole bunch of minutes as he's going to turn 39 years old here next month. So that was a great comeback win by the Lakers, a good overall team win. As we said before, we'll say it again, especially with the Lakers. LeBron and Anthony Davis both had to stay healthy, but they have better supporting castmates than this time last year before the trade deadline. So those guys had to step up, but continue to step up as well.
Yep. Of course, the Sacramento beat the Thunder 105-98. The Mavs and the Clippers in the high scoring affair 144-126. Luka had 44, and this is very interesting. There's only 2 other players that have averaged more points versus a single opponent all time, 25 games. Of course, that's Wilt and MJ. Luka averages like 32 points. He loves playing the Clippers, so for him, I think I'm sure we could play the Clippers more often because he scores a lot. But nice win for the Mavs. Minnesota, like I said, they're starting to getting a little bit of a roll. They beat the Spurs. Victor Wembanyama had 29, which is a career high for him in a losing effort there. Utah beat Memphis. Boston beat Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. Like I said, they've won 8 in a row. They beat the Detroit. So.
Yeah, and those are your results from last Friday's play-in tournament. Of course, the play-in tournament will continue this Tuesday and this upcoming Friday. Of course, we'll give you the schedule coming up right now as far as the games tonight for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
All right, you got the first game, the NBA TV doubleheader. So if you want to take a break from the Broncos Bills, you got the Knicks in Boston. Then you got Washington and Toronto. We talked about the Bulls as they go on the road, going up north. They host Milwaukee at 7. And the second game, the NBA TV doubleheader should be a good one as the Cavs continue their West Coast trip as they face the Kings.
All right, tomorrow, Tuesday, is the NBA in tournament season play tournament picks up again. Here is your schedule that looks like this. This is for the in-season play-in tournament. The Miami Heat would play the Charlotte Hornets. The Atlanta Hawks will visit Detroit to take on the Pistons. The Pacers will play the 76ers again. They played again yesterday, so Indiana's just staying in town in Philadelphia this time for the play-in tournament game. The Magic will play the Brooklyn Nets. The Spurs and the Thunder will get together in OKC. That's part of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader at 6:30. The Trailblazers will play the Utah Jazz. The Mavericks will play the Pelicans once again. In the nightcap of that TNT doubleheader for the play-in tournament, we'll have the Clippers visiting the defending champion Denver Nuggets. And finishing out that Tuesday night schedule, we'll have the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Golden State Warriors. And the Los Angeles Lakers, and perhaps the return of LeBron James, will host the Memphis Grizzlies.
That Clippers Denver game, that should be interesting. For Wednesday, you got Dallas and Washington. You got the Knicks and the Hawks. Boston and Philadelphia. That's the first game that was a doubleheader on ESPN. Milwaukee and Toronto. The Bulls host Orlando. Phoenix hosts Minnesota. The second game of that ESPN doubleheader should be a good one. You got the Kings and the Lakers. And the Cavs are, this is their third game of their road West Coast road trip as they face Portland at 9 o'clock.
Here's your schedule for Thursday, and it looks like there's just only 2 games, and both the games can be seen on NBA TV. Starting out with the Brooklyn Nets facing the Miami Heat at 6:30 Central Standard Time, followed by the Golden State Warriors hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. And that's your schedule for this week in the NBA.
This is Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. Lakeem McGee, Cindy Brown with you. You want to take a break now, Sid? Or we got a couple more minutes before we go to break, so I'll say this, who's been your team that's impressed you early on in this very young NBA season?
I would have to say the Dallas Mavericks. Oddly enough, I did catch a few minutes of that game last night as the Mavericks blew out the New Orleans Pelicans. As you mentioned, Luka Doncic is playing almost at an MVP type level. I know a couple years ago I thought that he was going to win MVP. It just hasn't happened yet. But I think if Dallas finishes at a top 3, top 4 seed, I think if he continues to play at this pace, I think he'll get consideration for MVP. I know that Kyrie Irving's starting to play a whole lot better. Tim Hardaway Jr. is starting to play a whole lot better. So hopefully the Mavericks can get on a roll with some consistency because as we said before, coming to this year, the Western Conference is stacked. And so who's going to separate themselves for the pack? We'll see about that. Another team I think is surprising, and you mentioned the Bulls will host them on Wednesday at the United Center. That's the Orlando Magic. Of course, Pablo Banchero in his second year. Remember, he played in that FIFA World Cup over the summer. You still have Jalen Suggs, and then you have Greg Anthony's son, Cole Anthony. And, of course, you have Wendell Carter Jr. there as well. So, Orlando, they may take another step this year. I don't know if they're ready just yet to get into the playoffs, become the playoff team, but they're around 500 right now. So, that's the 2 teams that stuck out to me that's having a nice starts to the year.
Yeah, I like Philadelphia. Like I said, after that, tough loss to Milwaukee, which they probably could have won that game. They've won 8 in a row, including wins over Phoenix and Boston. Some impressive wins there, and B is still doing his thing. But Tyrese Maxey is making a case for perhaps maybe an early All-Star, or at the very least a reserve consideration. Of course, had 50 burger against the Pacers on yesterday with career high for him. So you got Tobias Harris and some of the other guys on that squad as well. They can stay consistent. They can kind of be sort of like, all right, Milwaukee's been struggling a little bit. Boston, still pretty solid, but Philadelphia is sort of like, hey, you know what? Don't forget about us. I know Harden's gone, but we're still here. We're actually even better without Harden, dare I say? So at least early on, they've been playing very well now under Nick Nurse. Now on the flip side, I will say my most disappointing team, I'll say Phoenix. I know there have been some injuries. Guys been out. I know they're in 9th right now. They're 4 and 6, but it need to be a little bit more consistent. It's gonna be more consistency. A lot of people thought that maybe. I know the Western Conference is a gauntlet, but Phoenix should be like right in that top 4 or 5 range right now. So hopefully when Book comes back, hopefully he might be back in the next couple of weeks from what I read. They can kind of get it going and be that team that a lot of people thought that they would be. So we'll see.
I want to say this here before we close out and hit the bottom of the hour break. I did watch the majority of that Boston-Toronto game on last Saturday night. The way that the Boston Celtics play, I know Toronto's going through it right now, but the way the Boston Celtics play, if they can play like that every night, they're going to be tough to beat. I know it's a revelation to some of y'all, but as I said before, coming into the season, as far as the Eastern Conference is concerned, it's Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Boston. Everybody else can go and play, but the way that Jason Tatum played, he scored over 20 points. Porzingis, I believe, is going to be the key. He had a nice game scoring 20-plus points. And also, too, Jaylen Brown chipped in, I believe, with 29. But the way that Joe Mazzulla has that team playing, they could be dangerous if they play like that every night. I know Derek White's their starting point guard. I know Drew Holiday, who they picked up, part of their Damian Lillard trade. I know he got released by Portland, but Boston picked him up. But the only thing that concerns me about Boston is their lack of depth. I know Al Horford returned from injury last Saturday, gave him some minutes here and there. But the only thing that's concerning me is their bench and lack of it. I know that Hauser kid's been playing well lately, especially shooting the ball from 3-point range. But what concerns me is the lack of depth on their bench. So hopefully, maybe they'll address it come trade deadline in February. But outside of that, I really like Boston. But what could be concerning to me is the lack of depth in their bench.
That could be the thing that might kill it, because you remember what happened when Milwaukee. I mean, that their lack of depth, kind of killed them in the end with all the injuries. So, hopefully Boston will want to have that same bait. We'll see, but that should be interesting what happens with that. All right, so we're gonna do some of this rapid fire after the break. You got college football week 11. Connor Bedard continues to impress, and a lot of scoring in the NHL. Also, all the MLB awards will be announcing, sometime, starting tonight. So we'll have our predictions there, and time permitting, hopefully, old school TV Monday and a whole lot more. Lakina McGee, City Brown, 60 Sports on Sports in Chicago. Rapid fire hodgepodge coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports of the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Sports Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't come again, the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today. So, you have any last minute questions or comments, you can always look us up on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so let's do this stuff rapid fire now as we're going into the last half hour of the show. Let's talk college football week 11 as Ohio State. No trouble with Michigan State, 38-3. No, like I said, no real trouble here. This was kind of as expected, of course. Ohio State being number one in the college football rankings. Kyle McCord threw for 3 TDs. Marvin Harrison Jr. got 2 of those, 149 receiving yards. Just do what you're supposed to do against a team that's going through it right now. I'm talking about Michigan State. There. Let's see here. Georgia pulled away from Ole Miss 52-17. Michigan, again, they held off Penn State 24-15. Sharon Moore, he had Jim Harbaugh, but they go back a long way. They go back to their days at Stanford when they were on the coaching staff together. He got the interim tag when the whole thing with signing, okay, whatever. But they you can tell they play a little bit inspired. They did just have to win this game against Penn State.
Yeah, Blake Corum was the man of the hour for Michigan's offense. 26 carries, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns. J.J. McCarthy, they didn't have a good game, but it was Michigan's defense that stepped up to the forefront. They kept Penn State out of the end zone. Lakina, you brought this question up on Friday with James Franklin and crew for Penn State. They've been begging folks to pay attention to him. Consider it's one of the top teams in the country. This was your big stage, and you failed. Just saying.
Exactly. So, all right. Penn, Florida State. You basically kind of covered what I was going to say, Sid. So, no need to rehash it. Florida State beat Miami 27-20. Again, not the prettiest, but Miami did have their chances. They did tie. It was tied for a little bit early the third quarter, but Florida State showed they're just a little bit more talented than Miami, so they were able to kind of get it there.
Yeah, Keon Coleman had a 57-yard punt return for a touchdown, which basically sealed the deal for Florida State. As I said on Friday, I think Miami would be competitive if they were, but like you said, they just didn't have enough to get it done. As I said before throughout the season, Lakina, can we get Jordan Travis some love, the star quarterback for Florida State? I know his stats didn't look that great, 265 yards with only 1 touchdown pass, but I think he's a sneaky candidate for that Heisman Trophy. I think he's on the outside looking in the top 3. Yeah,
they should be. So, that might be something to look out for there. Washington pulled away from Utah 35-28. They gave up 20 points about defense, but they did do, kind of, adjust late. Washington, they intercepted Bryson Barnes twice in the second half. Michael Penix Jr. threw 332 yards and 2 TDs. Dylan Johnson had 104 rushing yards and a touchdown. Like I said, it was really the defense for Washington kind of sealed that win for them.
Yeah, like I said, it was a bit on Friday. This was a bigger game from Washington. This was a bigger game personally for Michael Penix Jr. He's in my top 3 as far as Heisman Trophy candidacy is concerned. You mentioned 332 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. But Utah's been struggling with offense all year long. Their defense has been stellar, but the offense comes and goes. But they decided to show up in that first half. That second half, I'm talking about Utah's offense, it went 0 for naught.
Yeah, totally 0 for naught. Oregon beat USC 36-27. Texas and TCU, they hold them.
Bo Nix, he's the number 1 candidate for the Heisman Trophy, in my opinion. Another 400-yard passing game, 4 touchdowns, building up their resume.
Well, look, you could throw for 400 yards against that USC defense, though. I'm just saying. Not insulting here, but I'm just saying, that defense. Oof.
Yeah.
Texas held off TCU 29-26. This probably could be the guy that maybe you could probably say could be a Heisman, at least in the contending category. Jalen Moreau, 49-21, no trouble for Alabama over Kentucky. And Ashley Moreau, he's the first player with 3 passing TDs and 3 rushing TDs. He's the first player in Alabama history to do that, which is kind of odd considering all the great, rich history that Alabama has with QBs. Clearly some that are playing right now in the NFL. But should he probably be in the Heisman discussion, you think?
If he was playing like this all year, I would say yes. But his first couple of games did not go as well. He's trying to implement himself into the lineup, so that's probably what's going to hurt him.
Oregon State, no trouble at all with Stanford. Mizzou, the Fighting Mike Burmans, as we call them here, no trouble with Tennessee, 36-7. Cody Schrader, he's a 10th player in FBS history with 200 rushing yards and 100 receiving yards in a game. He's the third player to do that against an AP ranked team, joining Devin Neal, who did last season against Oklahoma State, and Christian McCaffrey, who did it in 2015 versus USC. So nice showing for them. And Missouri, 8-2. If it wasn't for Georgia being in the SEC, they probably would be in the contender. But they're doing a really good job, with the Tigers. They're 8-2. I know our buddy Mike Berman is pretty excited about his Tigers.
Yeah, don't forget Schrader too had 5 catches for 116 yards, so he can catch it out of the backfield as well.
Oklahoma had the ultimate letdown against UCF. They got hammered 45-3. I guess it was their powder blue uniforms that UCF was wearing. Maybe that's probably why they were that threw them off. I guess I don't know, but just a terrible after beating your rival at home, and then a team that you probably should have had no trouble. Then you got your butt kicked, but whatever. Texas Tech beat Kansas 16-13. Oklahoma no trouble with West Virginia. Your buddy Jaden Daniels 52-35 LSU over Florida, and their usual rivalry game. Going back to Mr. Daniels, if I can get the stat up here, he became the second player in FBS history to reach 10,000 career passing yards and 3,000 career rushing yards. So this is definitely one of those games where I'm sure Brian Kelly is is glad he has this guy on his team.
Yeah, you mentioned Daniels' performance. He had 372 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns off of 12 carries to 234 yards.
Yeah, a really good showing by him, and it kind of led the way for the Tigers in that win against Florida. Arizona held off Colorado 34-31. Unfortunately for Colorado, they only got 2 games left. They fall to 4-6, and they need to win their next 2 in order to become bowl eligible. So I don't know. I mean, Noah.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, Philip Fadita had 214 passing yards and 2 DDs. The Buffs couldn't let out Jonah Coleman. He had 179 rushing yards for them, for the Wildcats, and Colorado's remaining schedule is this. If I can get up real quick, they got Washington State and Utah both on the road. That was their last home game of the season. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be tough for them to try get that bowl.
Yeah, they'll be looking to win 1 game at this point, and they missed another easy field goal again, which came to bite them in the butt at the end.
Yeah, that's just a tough loss for Deion Shador and the gang over there up there Boulder. Iowa's down the driver's seat to win the Big Ten West. They beat Rutgers 22-0. So they scored 22 points. Yay! Yay! I mean, you'll take that, I guess. 24-22 Tulane over Tulsa. This was a thriller here. No, this is not basketball season yet, folks. North Carolina beat Duke in a thriller 47-45 in double overtime. They needed that after kind of losing the last few weeks, but a little bit of an ump there. Kansas State beat Baylor 59-25. Excuse me. John Packers 507 passing yards. I think that's the most ever by an Illinois quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. They beat Indiana in overtime 48-45, and they gotta wait. They gotta wait a lot. So I guess if Iowa screws up the last couple of weeks, they can probably have sneak in there and perhaps go back to the Big Ten championship game. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but but it's a nice showing by Pack. He won a Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week honors.
Yeah, congrats to him. And another team that's really coming out of nowhere, and I'm just doing this because we had to report on what's happening, especially on this show. Northwestern stunned Wisconsin 24-10 in Madison. No one expected this. I know I didn't. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I think it's their first win in Madison since that time that they went to the Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. It might be a year or two off on that, but yeah, it's been a while since they beat Wisconsin in Madison. I'll give David Braun this. I mean, they're 5-5. If they win one of their next two, they can go bowling. But outside of Evanston, I don't think even people in Evanston really care too much about it. But I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I know they got a
nice
vote
job.
coming up. Yeah, I know they got a vote coming up later today. If the citizens there want to approve a vote to remodel Ryan Field, they're going to go from 40,000 seat stadium to 35,000 with this new remodeling thing. We'll see what happens.
Texas A&M beat Mississippi State 51-10, but that wasn't enough, because Jimbo Fisher is out. He's bye-bye. He got $76 million buyout as his parting gift. So bravo, I guess.
Yeah, there's your retirement plan. He's not complaining one bit.
No, he's not. And no, Mississippi, they fired their head coach too. I guess it was the fire coaching bowl. I guess Arizona State beat UCLA 17-7. Iowa State, they're kind of like sneaking up there. They're really in the driver's seat too. The Big 12 with all the stuff that's going on around it, with Kansas losing, also Oklahoma State losing, so they could probably be in the driver's seat to get that second spot in the Big 12 championship game. And Hawaii beat Air Force 27-13. The Air Force has now lost 2 in a row after being undefeated.
I don't know if you saw this on social media the last night or two. I was given this information last night from a reputable source. It actually someone reported on Twitter, or X now, that Texas A&M is strongly considering going after Deion Sanders, and the legs on that story is real. I know that, like I said, give Deion Sanders a couple of years, about 2-3 years at Colorado, then he'll move on to his next job. But I know strangest things have happened, but call me crazy. I don't see Deion Sanders leaving Colorado after a year. I just don't see it. Not saying that it can't happen, but I just don't see it right now.
Well, I mean, look, A&M can pay him. I mean, look how much they're paying, Jimbo Fisher to go bye-bye. But
right.
I mean, look, they got the money, but like I said, I think, do you really want? I know Texas is like the hotbed, recruiting, that you can get a lot, of mileage with that. So I don't know if he would want to leave for Texas A&M. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where you're kind of like, all right, I guess, but you're starting to kind of set up a culture. You need to be consistent, stay at least a couple of years before you want to go out. I know some other names have been floating around. Dave Echo from Duke. I know Lane Kiffin's name's been thrown around. I know Cliff Kingsbury's name's been thrown around as well. I can't imagine any of those guys. I know Dan Lenne is another guy. I know he's an SEC guy, but I know, look, you're not going to run away from. Look, Oregon could pay you and they could, all the facilities and stuff. So I don't think he's going to go anywhere anytime soon from Oregon. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to win there, especially now you got Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC next year. I can't. This is going to be a tough showing, so I can't see Deion or anybody else. I mean, look, I know A&M has the money to pay whoever, but it's one of those things where it's just like, is it going to be tough to win? I mean, I know that, look, if Jimbo Fisher, who was actually at the top of his game, he was at Florida State, if he couldn't win there, I mean, how do you think, Deion and other guys are going to be? So, Zach Arnett, who was a coach from Mississippi State, who got fired as well, like around the same, just a couple hours after Jimbo did. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But, that's going to get, the coaching carousel starts right now as we speak.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to see what happens this time of year. So, of course, in the professional end, of course, we're talking about the college level as far as the coaching carousel. I think Cliff Kingsbury will get an opportunity. But I don't know if it's going to be at Texas A&M, but I think he'll get an opportunity next year. He's been out for a year plus. Yeah,
he might. Look, at the rate things are going to USC, he might be getting the USC job. I'm just saying. But
you could be right.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But, I mean, look, all this is going to be – there's a lot to be decided here, so we'll see what happens with that. Just Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Real quick, we'll college hoops. Arizona beat Duke at Duke. This is their first loss at Cameron during the John Shire era. Caleb Love, who I'm sure Duke fans are happy they don't have to see him anymore, unless they play each other in the tournament, obviously. But that was a really solid performance. I was watching a little bit of that game, but. I mean, a really big, game, for especially this early this season. But yeah, a really nice win for Arizona over there at Cameron.
Yeah, congrats to the Wildcats. I know I caught a couple of highlights of that game. As we talked about with college football, Lakina, college basketball has changed too, with parity being now more prominent more than ever, not just with the name, image, and likeness rule, but the transfer portal was doing some of these big-time programs in as well, because you're going to have everybody just about on the same playing field now as far as getting talent is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know DePaul had a tough loss too. They've had a tough start early going. I think Northwestern had a nice win as well. So look, we'll talk more about college hoops as the season goes, but yeah, I mean, I think I know most people are not going to be like really concentrating on college hoops right now, but but yeah, I mean, like you got some really interesting matchups. You got Michigan against St. John's coming up, tonight on FS1. You got Juwan Howard versus Rick Pitino. That should be a interesting one to say the least. But yeah, I mean, look, there's been some interesting matches coming up. We'll talk more about that too. I'm not sure if we got time on Friday, but.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Let's see, Lakina hanging out here with you as we still have a few more minutes left for this extravaganza for a Monday edition of Second City Sports. Lakina, you say you have some news about the postseason awards as we transition now into baseball.
Yes, we do. But Craig Counsell, of course, the official. He's officially they named the new manager for the Chicago Cubs. Of course, they didn't really say anything too like weird or anything like that. It's kind of very status quo. And he did. It was actually pretty funny. He did say that he actually ignored Jed Hoyer's call early on. He actually missed his call. So that was played at I think his wife said the wife did the same thing back in the day. But it was pretty funny. But the postseason awards will be announced throughout this week. So starting tonight, the Rookie of the Year awards will be handed out. It'll be starting the AL. You got Tanner Big B, I should say, for the Guardians. Tristan Casillas for the Red Sox, and I think this is the guy that's going to win it. Gunnar Henderson for the Orioles. I think he's your winner right there.
Yeah, great. Gunnar Henderson's your flat out winner.
Okay, I think this might be one of our winners on the NL side. You got Corbin Carroll, I think he's that winner. James Allman for the Dodgers, and Cordai Senga for the Mets. I think Corbin Carroll, the Diamondbacks, that's your winner right there.
Yeah, we've been saying that all year. This Corbin Carroll has been one of the catalysts for that Arizona Diamondbacks team, and which helped them make that surprising run throughout the playoffs to the World Series. So he's your winner.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This might be a little bit difficult on the manager side. These words will be announced tomorrow. On the AL, you got Bruce Bochy for the Rangers, the defending champion Rangers, Kevin Cash from the Rays, and Brandon Hyde, I should say, for the Orioles.
I think Bruce Bochy is going to win that award, but I think Brandon Hyde, he's my winner because Baltimore, even though people expected them to take the next step, which they did this year, but no one expected that team to win over 100 games.
Yeah, I think Hyde might get it as well. I know Bochy, the fact that, but the Rangers kind of struggled a little bit. I don't want to say they backed into the playoffs because they were going to go anyway, but they kind of
lost the division on the last day of the season.
Yeah, so they kind of launched that. I think the Orioles. I know they were disappointed, but the Orioles to the next step. So I think Hyde might be your winner there on the AL side. We'll see. And on the NL side, of course, you got Craig Counsell now. Well, then the Brewers now Cubs manager. Skip Schumacher for the Marlins and Brian Snicker, I should say, for the Braves.
I think who was that second candidate? I missed it.
Skip Schumacher.
From the Marlins. It should be him. It should be him because no one expected Florida to get into the playoffs this past year. And you consider some of the injuries they had down the stretch, including Sandy Alcantara. He was their Cy Young Award winner last year. Of course, they made some trades at the trade deadline, especially picking up Jake Berger from the White Sox. And, of course, that's when that team took off. So I think Schumacher should be your winner.
I bet it's Brian Snicker. I mean, I know the Braves were expected, but I think the fact that they were able to kind of, they kind of dominated for the most part when they did. I think that's good. We're going to win it for them. But yeah, we'll see. Like I said, any three of these guys will probably end up, have a shot at winning. So I wouldn't be surprised if Shoemaker ended up winning. Now, the NL Cy Young, I'm still a little bitter about that. Brendan Steele did not make the list. I'm still miffed about that from the Cubs. Zach Gallen, Blake Snell, Logan Well for the Giants got that third spot. Of course, Gallen for the Diamondbacks and Snell for the Padres. But I think we can all agree. We both agree. I think Blake Snell will probably end up winning it. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. This might be a little bit open here in the AL side for the side. You got Garrett Cole for the Yankees, Kevin Gausman for the Blue Jays, and Sonny Gray for the Twins.
Yeah, Sonny Gray had a better year this year than he did last year. Of course, Garrett Cole, he was one of the few reasons why the Yankees were above water for a while. And then, like I said, Kevin Gausman stepped up in that sometimes trouble starting rotation for the Blue Jays. I think Garrett Cole will probably get that award, but my winner would be, hate to say it, but Sonny Gray. But I think Garrett Cole was going to get that award.
Yeah, I think Garrett Cole might win it, but although I would be surprised if maybe Sonny Gray ends up winning it as well. But I think for the name's sake of it, I think of course the Yankees, kind of Cole kept the Yankees afloat for a little bit before they kind of the wheels fell off for them. So yeah, I think Cole will probably get it as well. Now the big one here, the MVP, you got Shohei. Could this be back to back for him, or Corey Seager from the Rangers, or Marcus Semien for the Rangers? I think even for that alone, because both the Rangers may split the ball, I think Ohtani wins back to back.
Yeah, it's Ohtani's award to lose, and he's going to win it. It's a nice prize for him is he's going to switch teams for next year.
All right, on the NL side, you got Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Braves, and Dodger teammates Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman also already has one with the Braves, so Mookie Betts also has one for the Red Sox as well. So what do you think? Do you think Acuna Jr. will win his first, or will the other two guys win their second?
It's Ronald Acuna Jr.'s award to win.
I think Betts and Freeman will probably split the vote because they're both for the Dodgers. I think that that kind of shows up, but let's see what happens with there. Of course, all week long these awards will be announced on MLB Network, so make sure you guys check that out at 5:00 Chicago time.
Yep, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago on this Monday as we wind it down. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. Lakina, anything else that you need to discuss? Get off your chest before we disperse.
It's Connor Bedard, of course. They lost that game against the Panthers, but he continues to kind of just shows, just like more development and whatnot, and a lot of scoring in the NHL as well. I think that Ovi had his 43rd career goal versus the Islanders over the weekend. The Dallas Stars, they had 4 power play goals on Friday. So a lot of scoring in the NHL, and I know that the Golden Knights are already at 12 wins, which is tied for the most by a defending champ in their first 15 games in NHL history. They only trailed the 1929 Boston Bruins. Don't ask me who was on that team. But yeah, I think that a lot of scoring in the NHL. And in February, the Carolina Panthers, they were then the Hartford Whalers going to wear those Hartford Whaler jerseys.
Those lime green, darker green, I should say. Those darker green jerseys, kind of dark green jerseys. I love those. Yeah.
I wish they kind of kept a little bit of that, but and I understand why they had to change it. But yeah, February 4th, I'll double check. I think February 4th they're gonna wear those jerseys for their game. Yeah, well, February 10th, I should say. We'll only do it for one night only, so I'm sure Carolina fans are gonna be storming to get those jerseys. But yeah, so that's about it. Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say Connor Bedard, aka the hockey prodigy, as I call him on the Twitter machine. He's had his second straight multi-point game, multi-goal game. He's now has a total of 9 goals of the year. Also, too, Lakina, I know the Blackhawks are not very good, even though they are a little bit better than they were a year ago. I think they are 5-8 as of this live broadcast. But let's give Peter Mrazek credit for he's been playing. I think he's been your second best Blackhawk this year with the games he's played in net.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's done what he can, but yeah, the Panthers, you know how much firepower they got on offense. So just couldn't handle it yesterday. But but still, you look another multi-point game for Bedard. I know Taylor Hall's been banged up. I know he got injured again a couple of nights ago. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're Hawks fans, I mean, look, this is what you want to see. You want to see Bedard, develop. And look, he's not even 19 yet. He's only 18, so he probably only get better from here. Yeah, and I know that some of the guys around him, a lot of the veterans around him, have kind of been helping it out a little bit. So, if you're a Blackhawks fan, you should feel encouraged with what you've been seeing so far from Bedard and the rest, and even the Blackhawks as a whole.
Yes, even though as we said this last year where they had less talent, Their team is going to compete every night. You can tell that they're starting to learn how to play together, despite the injuries you just mentioned. But they're going to be competitive every night. You're not going to see them go out and throw their skates on the ice and just go through the motions. That's not that team this year. And Luke Richardson deserves a whole lot of credit for getting these games ready to play. I know they had a couple of players-only meetings over the last few weeks, but it looks like those are finally starting to pay off, because you know in professional sports, when you hear players-only team meetings, those usually don't go well in the long run. But it seems like they've been worked out well so far for the Hawks.
Yeah, which is great to see. And I think that's all. That's like I said, that's all you want to ask for if you're a Hawks fan, just development. Guys playing together, a little bit of cohesiveness, and look, things are. Look, it might be another year or two before the Hawks are contending for anything, but I think again, improvement and getting better as the season goes on. I'm sure. Look, they're going to give some teams some fits. I mean, let's not don't say it's going to be easy. What if you play the Blackhawks? So I think that's all you want, and that's all you want if you're a Hawks fan. Just improvement, and give some of these top teams fits. Like they did against the Knights, gave them their first loss. They played Boston very tough. Won that game. So I mean, I think I mean, look, you just all you can ask for if you're a Blackhawks fan.
Yeah, and they beat Pittsburgh on the road to opening night. So, like you said, one more can you ask for so far through the first 13, 14 games this year? I think most Hawks fans would take it, given the reasonable expectations for this team this year.
Absolutely. So, anything else before we disperse?
Oh, yeah, since we have a couple of minutes left, we haven't done it for the last couple of weeks. It's time for Old School TV Monday. And this week we'll honor the 1980s TV sitcom Alf. That's right. Okay. The title character called Alf was an acronym for Alien Life Form, whose real name is Gordon Shumway. Crash lands in the garage of the suburban middle-class Tanner family. The series starred Max Wright as father Willie Tanner, and Shanidi as mother Kate Tanner, and Andrea Elson and Benji Gregory as their children, Lynn and Brian Tanner. Alf was performed by puppeteer Paul Fusco, who co-created the show with Tom Patchett. However, in the scenes which the character appeared in full body, a small costume actor was briefly used. Then uncredited in that role was Hungarian-born Mitchell Mazaros. Produced by Alien Productions, Alf ran for 4 seasons and produced 99 episodes, including 4 one-hour episodes. And they were divided into 2 parts for syndication, totaling with 102 episodes. The series proper concluded with an unresolved cliffhanger, but a later TV movie, Project Alf, served as the series finale for the franchise.
Yeah, I remember watching that TV movie. It kind of helped sort of like put everything kind of in a bowl. Alf, spoiler alert for those who didn't see it, Alf ended up going home. But yeah, I mean, it was sort of like your typical, like, hey, the alien, coming in and wreaking havoc on a family. Alf always had to kind of leave the room whenever company would come, because they didn't want Tanner didn't want to. The Tanners didn't want anybody to know that you had an alien in your house. So I mean, it was funny. It had its funny moments. I mean, like I said, when I was younger, I liked it, but as I got older, I was kind of like, okay. He didn't like cats. I remember that he was not their cats. Their cat was, I mean, that was just awful. But it was a good show for what it was meant to be and for what it was. You can still stream it on Amazon Prime. I think it's on Pluto TV too, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, I remember that became a cultural phenomenon, just like The Simpsons. It came out of nowhere, especially with Bart Simpson being a cultural phenomenon with all the lunch boxes, T-shirts, and hats of Alf. That merchandise of him just took over almost overnight. And if my memory serves correct, I tried to find this. I couldn't find it in time for today, but I think they tried it on Saturday mornings and it didn't work.
A cartoon. They had a cartoon.
It didn't work.
It didn't. Yeah, I think it only lasted like a season. They had because they had Alf like all kind of like a grown guy. They had the whole like bluesy music, and I watched a couple of episodes. I wasn't a big fan. I ended up turning back. I think how when did it come on? Did it come on like at 9:30? I think I forgot what was on during that time. I think it might have been the Pound Puppies on ABC. I switched to that. It just it didn't land. It didn't take off. So yeah, they nixed it after just like half a season. So. But yeah, I mean, look, it's on Tubi, so if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, I mean, it was a really cool show. Unfortunately, for some of the younger kids on the show, they were kind of tied cast after that show ended. I know Max Wright did a lot of episodic stuff, and I think he did some voiceovers too after the show ended. So he ended up doing pretty well for himself. Still, I think he's still working too, I believe. But yeah, I mean, it was an okay sitcom. I wouldn't say it's like the all-time race, but it's kind of like in that mid-tier for sitcoms, especially in the 80s.
All right, so we salute For Old School TV Monday, the 1980s sitcom Alf. All right, Lakina, take us home.
You can follow me, Keena McGee, on the Twitter, X, like Keena again, IG.
You can follow yours, Shirley CD Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Please catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, so of course, you can also catch Sports on Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV. Just go on the Roku TV store, wherever you get your apps. If you got Roku TV on your device, just type in Roku. Just type in Sports on Chicago. It's all right there. You can catch our replays of our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. What's up, cuz? I know they're gonna have a lot to say tonight. I don't know if they're on tonight, but make sure you guys check them out as well. So you'll catch all the shows replays on Roku TV.
Yep. Right.
All right. Enjoy all the games. We got NBA. We got college hoops. I know. So you got Maction going on this week. With the last couple weeks of college football season and a whole lot more. So for Sid, I'm Lakeem. I know it's going to be a little bit warmer in some parts of the country. So enjoy the weather. Just be safe. Don't act like yes. Well, don't act like fools outside, y'all. With the holidays. For Sid, I'm Lakeem. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Doubles, holla!